Hey everyone, welcome back to the classic Goldbound challenge. As always, thank you so much for your kind feedback. It honestly motivates me a lot to keep pushing forward in this little journey. So, without further ado, let's dive right back in. Well, not quite. First, let me quickly recap the rules of this Goldbound challenge for anyone who's tuning in for the first time. In short, I'm bound to one zone until I collect a set amount of gold. Items can only come from questing or looting, and I can sell at the auction house, but not buy from there. With a small exception I'm going to cover at the end of this episode. Once I will reach my gold threshold, I unlock the next neighboring zone. In retail, this is tied to WoW tokens, but since we're in vanilla, I had to adjust the gold totals myself. For Teldrassil, the first step is reaching 25 gold before we can move on. Sounds simple, but as you'll see today, options are limited and the economy in Classic has its own mind, especially on this anniversary realm, which is still in progress and quite competitive. Also, for the next zone, my Goldbound total will be set to 100 gold. Now, let's get started. For a bit of change of pace, I started the session by finishing off some of the quests I had left in Teldrassil. While doing so, I ended up helping out another fellow hunter. Them being at level 7 and with no pet doing this quest reminded me of myself when I first got to this area. Let me tell you, this was not a pleasant experience. As a hunter, you had a hard time in those tight and winding corridors in this cave, with full bergs respawning right on top of you. The rewards for this quest were nothing special, but for most players, they were probably among the first greens they ever received in World of Warcraft. Moving on, I also made progress on my personal little side challenge of hunting down every rare NPC in Teldrassil. This time, I managed to kill Fraggle, which felt like a nice box ticked. While searching for him, I realized something interesting. The area wasn't half bad for farming. The mobs are low level, they drop a lot of linen, and there's pretty much no downtime because everything dies so quickly. Sure, there aren't any amazing high value drops, aside from the occasional green, but the sheer loot per minute was actually kind of impressive. Simply being in another area made the grind a bit more enjoyable too. Of course, I couldn't resist gathering a few more herbs along the way. Even though herbalism hasn't been the most profitable profession so far, every bit counts. And occasionally you do hit a swift fizzle. I was actually hoping to round off my rare mob collection by dragging down Sister Shielda, but unfortunately I arrived a bit too late. Someone else had beaten me to it.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
Still, persistence pays off. After some more grinding, looting and selling, I finally hit a new milestone. 10 gold in the bag. Now, 10 gold might not sound like much to most of players, but at this stage of the game and in Classic, I was pretty happy with it. Back at the auction house, there was also a moment when a friendly hunter offered to gift me a nice tunic. Of course, by the rules of this challenge, I had to respectfully decline, but if by some chance you are watching this, thank you very much, good sir. Naturally, I went back to one of my usual routines, harpy farming. They are not the most glamorous of mobs, but at this point, they were the only few consistent sources of income, and after a bit of persistence, I finally managed to encounter Sister Shielda again and complete my side quest of hunting down every rare NPC in Teldrassil. By this stage, the grind for experience was slowing down. Most quests were done, and regular mobs just weren't giving anything anymore. The exception being the harpy Matriarchs, since they were higher level. With a lot of grinding, I eventually managed to hit level 16. Looking back at this footage, I had a bit of regret. I should have kept my quiver and only swapped to bags once I was running low on arrows. Losing that attack speed bonus really added up over time. Oh well, lessons learned for the future. While farming, I came across a nice dagger and decided to just equip it. I had been struggling to sell weapons at the auction house, and because the fees are disproportionately high compared to the actual value of low-level weapons, I did not want to go through the trouble. So, instead of losing money trying to sell it, I figured I get more value by just using it for myself. Back in Darnassus, I did the usual routine: selling junk, checking auctions, and going through my mail. On top of that, I spent some time fishing again to stay sane and get some cheap food for Silverfang. Also, since the fish weren't selling for much, I decided to cook and bank some of them instead. My thought process was that increasing my cooking skill now might open up profitable recipes later on. After a good bit of farming and another night's sleep, I couldn't resist taking another look at my profits. I had been grinding hard, and the anticipation was killing me. Could this finally be the breakthrough I needed?
Here comes the money. Here we go. Money talk. Here comes the money.
When I saw the number, I honestly felt a rush of relief. 20 gold. The hard work was starting to pay off, and it was time to make the final push towards the Goldbound requirement. Since I still had one more quest in my log, I decided to clear it while farming along the way. That meant killing a lot of fullbergs on my path to Ursel. The enemies here were low level and went down quickly, which actually made for a nice farming loop again. Combined with the plentiful herb spawns in the area, it felt efficient enough to stay a bit longer. After banking my hauls and putting more auctions up, I went to bed with high hopes. And sure enough, the next day the mail told the story I had been waiting for. $25 gold. I had finally broken free of Teldrassil. Roughly 20 hours of playtime, countless dead harpies, and more herbs than I care to count. But the goal was reached. It was finally time to move on. Before leaving, I took a moment to review my character's progress. As you can see here, I didn't push skinning much further. It just wasn't worth it, and I'll likely swap it for mining or alchemy soon. Fishing and herbalism are high enough to be useful in Oberdin, and cooking is something I'll focus more on in later zones. It's interesting to see how each profession has its peaks and valleys depending on the market and in this stage of the game. So, to summarize this part of our journey. Random green drops and chest spawns turned out to be surprisingly great. Light feathers were another key item, especially since they are always on high demand. Also for players at level 60 who have a lot more resources to spare. Herbs on the other hand were a bit of a disappointment. Overfarmed starting zones and bot activity kept prices low. Swift Fizzle had potential, but it was way too inconsistent to rely on. Leatherworking and skinning didn't shine here, mostly because leather drops are rare in this level and my roots focused on humanoids anyway. Fishing was relaxing, but not really a moneymaker yet. Still, I have a hunch that this could change in future zones. One more thing I wanted to introduce going forward is a slight rule tweak. When I reach a new Goldbound threshold, I will allow myself to purchase one single item from the auction house. The catch is, whatever I spend, I'll have to make up for in the next zone's threshold. As an example, for this milestone, I decided to invest in a 12 slot bag for 88 silver, which I then have to make up for in Oberdin. Combined with learning the rest of my hunter skills, this means our new target in Oberdin will be 76 gold and 25 silver before we can unlock Ashenvale. And let me tell you, Ashenvale is one of my favorite zones in World of Warcraft. It's going to feel like a reward in itself once we finally get there. But looking at how long it took me to hit 25 gold in Teldrassil, I'm both excited and a little nervous how and when we will get there eventually. Well, that's where we are at. In the next episode, we'll set foot in Oberdin. scout out the market there and start testing new gold making strategies. Hopefully with a bit more variety than harpies and low-level herbs. I'm really looking forward to seeing what opportunities the next zone holds. Sorry that this episode was a bit on the short side and did not have that much new to offer. But I wanted to commit a new full episode for the next part of this journey. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you join me in Darkshore. Until then, have a great time. Bye.